Chris Crock Show on News Talk 820 WBAP and now on FM at 93.3. Make it a preset. Welcome to the show, and this is quite a night after the insane fallout of President Biden deciding, I believe unequivocally, deciding to unilaterally have his own press conference in his rage. And his rage, I believe, was displayed in his anger and yelling at reporters like this. This is actually CNN. It's interesting that that this wasn't a Fox News reporter, but it was this is CNN's MJ Lee who piped up after what's his name Peter Ducey asked him about his memory, and so he snapped at CNN's MJ Lee. Listen to this.
Mr. President, for months when you were asked about your age, you would respond with the words, "Watch me." Many American people have been watching, and they have expressed concerns about your age.
That is your judgment. That is your judgment. That is not the judgment of the press.
They expressed concerns about your mental acuity. They say that you are too old. Mr. President, in December, you told me that you believe there are many other Democrats who could defeat Donald Trump. So why does it have to be you now? What is your answer to that question?
I'm the most qualified person in this country to be president of the United States and finish the job I started.
Angry man, angry. And as we know, he forgot what church his son's rosary was from, even though he tried to invoke it. It was a 4.5 second dead air as he sat there and couldn't remember. Then it was like Frozen Mitch. We also know that he said the President Assisi is the president of Mexico, and the border with Israel is at Egypt. Excuse me, is not at Egypt, but is at Mexico. But and he it was a disaster, and he showed his anger. And anger is part of. I'm not an expert. We're going to talk to a doctor in 24 minutes at 8:30. There's a doctor who we're going to talk to, but I've heard from doctors and others who are knowledgeable on dementia or onset, all sorts of these mental acuity falling apart in your old age, what happens to some people that are older, that his anger is a sign of losing his ability, his critical thinking and or memory loss. These are signs of frustration, and anger is one of them. They lash out because they keep messing up. That is exactly what he displayed. One of the questions I want to ask you about is whether or not you think that Joe Biden whether or not you think that it was his idea to do the press conference or somebody else's, like not a Dr. Jill or the staff. I think unequivocally this man was so angry and is so angry about this. And so self-righteous, he can't see the truth. And I think he said, I'm going to go out there and have a press conference. And he never should have had it. The consensus, and I'm sure you agree with me, we all saw it. He had no business being out there doing a press conference when it's in the evening. He can't do one. He was horrible. He fell apart, and he melted down, and his anger was on display, and it made things worse. This did not make his case better. It made his case worse. He melted down and blew up on national television at his own insistence because he is his own worst enemy, because he is gone. He is gone, meaning he is not able to figure out what the best course of action is to do. He is led by his anger, which happens because of his frustration with his mental acuity falling apart, as evidenced in the report by the not independent counsel but special counsel. And, of course, the special counsel is saying that he's mentally incompetent. He is totally just mentally incompetent, and therefore the jury would be sympathetic because the guy's mind isn't there, so they're not going to convict him. So he's guilty of it. Orange Man's guilty of it, but see, he's charged because he is competent, okay? Trump is competent for the same thing. Do you know that Joe Biden literally, they said, willful retention of documents? That is exactly what Trump is charged with, I think 31 times, 21 or 31 times, willful retention of documents. Special counsel said the same thing, that Biden had willfully retained documents. But because he's incompetent to stand trial, to go on trial, he literally can't be held liable. So the president's incompetent, Trump's on trial, Biden's not. Obviously, this means you can't be the president anymore if you follow this logic, and that's just it. So I want to ask you some questions on this. I want to ask you, do you think Joe Biden made his case last night that he's mentally fit for president, or has it made things worse for him? And who do you think made the decision to do last night's press conference? And do you think it was a wise decision? 800-288-WBAP is our number, 800-288-9227. I want to hear from you right now. Chime in right now at 800-288-9227. Do you think Joe Biden made his case that he's mentally fit for president? Was it better last night that he make that case, or has he made things even worse for himself? And who do you think made that decision to do last night's press conference, and do you think it was a wise decision? 800-288-WBAP, 800-288-9227. Paul Begala, a Clinton aide for many years, said on CNN last night, "Look, I'm a Biden supporter. I slept like a baby last night. I woke up every 2 hours and wet the bed. This is terrible for Democrats. Anybody with a functioning brain knows that." The Wall Street Journal laying out more in detail today what was found. It's more damning than you and I even knew. Note cards were found in his home with classified up to top secret level, top secret SCI clearance. That's as high as it gets. It summarized the range of issues from foreign terrorist organizations, including specific activities of the U.S. military. Another file folder marked eyes only. That's as high as it gets, too. You can't write any notes, can't take it with you, can't take pictures. Eyes only was sitting at the Penn Biden Center. Biden had written on it, Iran, 130-15. U.S. was negotiating with Iran deal to halt its nuclear program at the time. Also, U.S. engagement with China was found in their top secret documents. World leaders attending a UN General Assembly in New York. Intelligence assessments from the CIA. And a transcript from conversations between Biden and Ukrainian politicians Arseniy Yatsenyuk. Now, here's something else. The ghostwriter was told that there's classified documents that are in the basement. And he said, so basically on tape they had him saying that these are classified documents, go get them, they're in the basement. He told his ghostwriter also on the tapes, some of this may be classified, so be careful. The ghostwriter did not have any security clearance whatsoever. But here's the biggest thing to come out today. There's so many of them, but this is from the Federalist. This is an exclusive. The Biden's attorney lied and said, they found about 6 documents. And the liberal media and the Democrats raving about Trump had 300 documents, and he was bad because there's 300 documents. Guess what Joe Biden had? Came out today in the Federalist. We now know the, quote, 6 items they write, and the personally handwritten notes, quote unquote, consisted of hundreds of top secret or classified documents, including notebooks filled with Joe Biden's summary of classified briefings. A quick count from the special counsel's appendix reveals the government recovered over 300 pages of top secret and classified documents. He had more than Trump had. More than Trump had. The FBI also seized a hard drive, but we don't know what was on there and what classified may be on there, what not. Could be even more. So you now understand this is way worse than Trump, but they're not going to prosecute him because he's incompetent, and Trump is. So let's go to Sue in Weatherford. You're on News Talk 820 WBAP and now on FM at 93.3. Hey, Sue.
Yes, I was just listening to the conversation, and I was just thinking, who do we need to contact to have Joe Biden's name taken off the ballot? Because he does not sound like he's able to carry out the duties of the president.
I believe that the only way to take his name off the ballot is if he did it or the Democrat Party did it in conjunction with him.
It's unbelievable. I am just very disappointed with the way our nation's going.
Yeah, I mean, our enemies now know that this man is completely incompetent. Just Joe Biden's own Justice Department officially said he's incompetent. He can't stand trial.
Unbelievable. Well, thank you for this conversation. It really brings things to light. I'm listening very intently. Thank you,
Sue. I appreciate your intent listening and your call. We've got several lines open for you right now. 800-288-WBAP is our number, 800-288-9227. Wait till you hear what the Democrats, several of them, told NBC News about this overnight, how bad it is. And guess what? We got another book that comes out that lays out that Jill Biden, not a Dr. Jill, lashed out at her husband and at his aides following a press conference a few years ago. Oh, it's the same thing that happened last night. We all guarantee it. I guarantee you. I'll tell you about that next on the Chris Crock Show on News Talk 820 WBAP, 800-288-9227. Chime in right now.
The report lays out how the president did not share classified documents with anyone. The report lays out how the president did not knowingly share classified information with anyone.
Oops, that's not true. All you got to do is read page. Let me see. I got the page number here. Hold on. The page number is page number 3. He says that's Ian Sams, the White House spokesperson for legal affairs. And he says, yeah, the report, what did he say again? It's a real quick one, huh?
The report lays out how the president did not share classified documents with anyone.
Oops, page 3 says he did. I mean, you don't have to read past page 3. It says he did. Oopsie, whoop-dee. Hey, it's News Talk 820 WBAP and now on FM at 93.3. Make it a preset. 800-288-WBAP is our number, 800-288-9227. Several lines open for you. Want to talk about Biden's press conference, the fallout. Do you think he actually made his case that he's mentally fit for the president after last night's press conference, or did he make it better or worse last night for himself? I think he made it way worse. Who do you think made the decision to do last night's press conference? And do you think it was a wise decision? I think it was stupid, it was horrible, and I think it was Joe Biden in his haste and anger, and that's why he looked like an ass last night. Pardon my French. And the other thing is, how do you think do you think the American people are not going to be able to distinguish between Trump documents case and Biden documents case? Karl Rove, not always a fan of his, but he said that today, and I thought it was spot on. He said the average American, they're going to see this and go, same case. Biden's off because it's his Justice Department, it's rigged, and Trump's going after. They're not going to distinguish between this or that. They're going to say it's rigged. The average American people. And I couldn't agree with them more on that. Jill Biden, not a Dr. Jill, lashed out at her husband and aides following a 2022 press conference going on too long. She was so mad a brand new book coming out quotes her from a 2022 press conference. Where were you guys? Where was the person who was going to end the press conference? The book writes, she had watched the news conference and the look on her face told everyone in the room from the president on down that they had some explaining to do. Why didn't anyone stop that, she said. Everyone stayed silent, looking at one another, and then her at her back to one another. Then that included the most powerful man in the world. They all didn't look at her. They let her yell at them and respond. They didn't respond. Her husband essentially played along, not offering an answer, even though the aides had slipped him a card suggesting he end the press conference. But she still yelled at him and blamed them for his senility. See this? Whoa. Can you imagine the last 48 hours behind the scenes? Screams, yells, swears, pure anger. The Democrat House member, one of the Democrat House members told NBC News last night it's a nightmare for Democrats. We're in a grim situation. Another Democrat operative told NBC News last night this is beyond devastating. It confirms every doubt and concern that voters have. If the only reason they didn't charge him is because he's too old to be charged, then how could a president be the president of the United States? That's right. Another Biden ally said it was the worst day of his presidency. I want to hear what you think. 800-288-WBAP is our number, 800-288-9227. Chime in right now. Do you think Biden made his case that he's mentally fit for president last night, or did he actually make it worse? Who do you think made that decision in that press conference as well to do it, and do it so hastily and angrily? And do you think the American people are going to be able to distinguish between why Joe Biden didn't get charged and why Trump did? I don't think they're going to distinguish. I think they're going to say one's rigged and one's not. And how panicked do you think the Democrats are about this right now? 800-288-WBAP, 800-288-9227. Let's go to Lynn in Frisco. Lynn, you're on News Talk 820 WBAP and now on FM at 93.3. Hey, Lynn.
Hi. So I worked in the mental health space for over 25 years, and I just want to say that I told your screener that the counsel, the special counsel, cannot say he's incompetent to stand trial. It has to be a physician. To see two physicians saying he either does or does not have the capacity.
Let me ask you this, though. I mean, you're obviously not a doctor, but you work with people that are mentally impaired with their age, or it sounds like, right? And if somebody cannot remember, if you're having them in a 5-hour, two different depositions for a couple hours one day, a couple hours the next day, and you're asking them key dates like, hey, when these documents were when you were vice president, what years were you vice president, and he cannot remember the years. And then they say, well, this one was around when your son Bo died. Do you remember what year was it he died? And he simply could not remember what year he died. Is that someone that sounds to you like they're? And they also he also stated that a general in Afghanistan that he agreed with and had his back. He said he disagreed with him and he was wrong. So he got all those basic facts wrong. So when you hear that, though, does that tell you that he's somebody that seems like he's normal to you?
Absolutely not. And I think we in this in healthcare have realized that since the inception of his presidency and campaigning, or that lack thereof. I think that, first of all, mental health disorder versus dementia is something else. And
what do you think from what you've seen this is? I know you're not a doctor. You work with these types of people. Does this look like something like dementia?
I'm a prescriber, so I do prescribe medication.
Oh, okay.
So I think he's more along the lines of dementia. And whether, I don't know what the rules are, because I'm in the mental health space, about dementia and standing trial. So, but a lawyer cannot decide if you're incompetent or you don't have the capacity.
I agree.
It has to be a physician.
I think what they did was, and I think you're going to agree with me, it sounds like, the special counsel let Joe Biden off, and he couldn't just let him off because it was direct and clearly guilty of what he did. Same thing as Trump, willfully retention of documents and such. And he had no business having any documents as a senator, which he stole. He stole them out of a skiff when he did that.
Right.
And he also stole them as a vice president. Yeah. And then he gave them to his ghostwriter. Here you go, read these. So he stole them to use for his own gain. And so I think that they made up an excuse like a Jim Comey to try to get him from not getting charged, but it makes him look worse than they made it be. He should have been charged instead. And I think you're exactly right. They didn't want to have a doctor because the doctor may have ruled the other way, and then he had to put him on trial. You're right.
Well, the other thing is, so now what are our legislators going to do about it? I served 22 and a half years in the military, and there is no reason that we should stand for this. You have young people out there risking their lives, and then you have this incompetent individual that seriously is deteriorating in front of our eyes. And,
we got to roll, but but I just wanted to say this. His anger last night, doesn't that show more that it is like a dementia, because that's a symptom, isn't it?
Yes, the way he's deteriorating. Now, he could have depression as well, and hallucinations and things like this that goes with dementia, as well as mental health, illness.
I got to roll, but you are an amazing caller, and I want you to stay in touch with us and keep calling in. You got a great opinion. Your expertise is extremely valued, especially as a prescriber. That's even more fantastic to hear from you, Lynn. Thank you very much for your call and your expertise and sharing your thoughts.
You're welcome.
Okay, that was very, very telling. Now, we're going to talk to a doctor coming up next on the Chris Kroc Show about these symptoms. And as a board-certified physician, what she thinks she's seeing and what she thinks is happening with this with Joe Biden, even though she's not, clearly looking at him personally or his records. That's up next on the Chris Kroc Show. Do not miss this. 800-288-WBAP is our number. 800-288-9227 on News Talk 820 WBAP and now on FM at 93.3.
The man is 80 years old.
He rides a bike.
He is the age he is.
Let's call it what it is. This is ageism snuck into a report clearing the person of any wrongdoing.
Why would he want to remember the day that his son died? Why? You want to block that out of your head.
Special prosecutor could have written the same report without using these words: elderly man with a poor memory.
And it was even worse judgment that the Justice Department allowed that garbage to be released.
Everybody on this panel right now has misspoken and said the wrong name or the wrong date.
If you don't have a case, shut the hell up or say as little.
Do you think he's playing politics?
I absolutely do.
I don't think they're going to talk their way out of this one for their guy Joe Biden. I just don't think it's going to happen. we have some real bad stuff here, and I wanted to talk to with the symptoms we're seeing and different things. And nobody knows for sure because his doctor won't release any details about his mental acuity, his mental health, if you will, or lack thereof. But I wanted to talk to a physician, a board-certified physician, Dr. Fahmi Farah, who practices right here in DFW. In fact, she is one of the top 20 doctors, I think, in Fort Worth, from Fort Worth Magazine. Are you not, madame?
Well, thank you for acknowledging that.
Yeah. I saw that. I'm like, ding! It's a nice little shiny star right there on the top of the fridge for you. But I know that maybe you're not the best expert on the mental part, but you are a board-certified physician, and you see people all the time, and you have experience and such. Tell me what you have seen with President Biden and the behaviors, and what have you've been able to figure out from what the reports have said publicly about the special counsel saying he's a sympathetic, well-meaning man, significantly limited memory, with a poor memory. Based on our direct interactions and observations of him, he's someone who, for many jurors, will want to identify reasonable doubt. It would be difficult to convince a jury that they should convict him when a former president, well into his 80s, a serious felony that requires a mental state of willfulness. Biden's memory appeared to have significant limitations. He didn't remember, even within several years, when his son died, nor his vice presidential years, what the terms were, like when it ended, when he started. So talk to me, Dr. Farah. What kind of symptoms are you seeing based on visually, saying that he's met with the president of the French Prime Minister Francois Mitterrand in 2021 when he died in 96, and saying he met with German Chancellor Helmut Kohl in 2021 when he died 6 years before, like 5 years earlier than that, 4 years earlier than that. So what are you seeing? What are you thinking when you watch all this?
Yeah, I'm of course not one of his physicians, so it's difficult for me to say specifically about President Joe Biden. But as a physician, I can say that, dementia is something of concern in the elderly folks, particularly those who are 70 plus. And so, dealing with patients on a regular basis, we do see mental deterioration. We do see memory issues. And so when it comes to critical thinking and decision making, can it be impacted? Yes, it can. This is just, of course, generalizing it to the general public and what we see in that age group. So I do think that neurological evaluation, by proper neurologists, like the actual experts, would be a good idea in that case, especially somebody who's in charge of making important decisions.
When you have somebody that's unable to remember that somebody's dead and that they met with them a couple of years ago when they have been dead for 6 years, or in another case 28 years, and you have them not remembering when their son died and other key dates like when they were in office, what does that tell you? If you were talking to this patient, it was your patient, let's say, and these things were what they were indicating for themselves, what would you want to flag them for? What would you be concerned about? What could be happening with their mental state?
My first concern would be dementia. So I would want them to get a thorough neurological evaluation and get checked up for dementia, because that's a very common occurrence, especially in that age group. So that would be my primary concern, is dementia.
And then dementia, when you see that, we saw that he had a press conference, and nobody knows for sure who called it and why, but we saw anger. I don't know if you're able to hear that part of it or hear any of the anger. I can play a soundbite, one of them in particular. But you hear anger, you hear frustrations. Are those symptoms of having perhaps dementia or a mental decline that's associated with older age?
It's hard to say. I can't really say that pertaining to President Joe Biden, but yes, for somebody who has early signs of dementia, they can have personality changes as well. There are different types of dementia, of course, along with memory issues. So those are all signs and symptoms. But that being said, I'm not his personal physician, so
right.
I don't know his medical history.
Right. So, but anger, when you deal with these issues, is anger something that would also be an indicator of possible dementia? It sounds like you were acknowledging that, not him, but anger when you're in frustration with this is something that it does. I've been hearing on the news lately that's something that does manifest in dementia and other similar instances. Is that one of the symptoms as well?
It can be personality changes. Patients who are, like early or advanced stage dementia, when they can't remember things, it does get frustrating for them. I have not watched this particular, clip
conference,
of President Biden. Yes, so I can't comment on that. But yes, just a general comment in terms of dementia. Yes, frustration and anger can be one of the signs, just because of the they can't function at the same level anymore, and they can't remember certain things, and that could be frustrating.
For anybody in general, not the president, but in general, dementia stuff, does it usually start in around 70 plus, you were saying, I think? And how long does it does the decline go before it's precipitously obvious?
Sorry, you got cut off for a second.
Oh, that's okay. Yeah. What I was asking was, does it usually start, if for folks on average, the dementia does usually start at like 70 plus? And then how long is the decline usually where it's completely noticeable and, it's kind of totally obvious from that point forward? Is it a long decline? Is it a slow decline for most people? And does it usually happen at 70 plus or 80 plus?
Yeah, it can be long. Typically, when we're talking about dementia, it's usually a gradual process. It's not something that happens overnight or in a short period of time. That being said, everybody, it's an individualized thing. I have patients who are 99 years old and they're in complete, they have completely intact mentation. They can remember everything. And then I also have people who are in their 60s, late 60s, who have high-grade dementia. So there are a lot of factors that are involved here, family history, your own risk factors. For the most part, the general population, it's usually 70 plus. That's when we start to see majority of the people who are affected by dementia. But that's not to say that there are not outliers. We do have people who are close to 100 years old and they can perform great with a perfect mental condition, and we also have people who are much younger than that who cannot.
So what's interesting to me then, the last question I'll work with you on here or ask you is about when the decline. There's other conditions that all of us have experienced, like I had some slow hearing loss from my radio over the years, and finally I have to realize, yes, okay, fine, there's something, but it's a slow burn where they start complaining, and so that's kind of the thing with dementia. It would seem like where all of us have symptoms or issues that manifest, but we're kind of in denial or we don't fully notice it because it's not that prominent, but eventually it becomes really prominent and it's progressive, but it could be very slow, a slow fade, slow burn, right?
That is correct, yes. Sometimes the signs can be so subtle that we don't recognize it until it's far more advanced.
Right, like we might be saying, oh, it looks fine. Well, I don't know. Well, but of course, that's just we don't know. But Doctor, first of all, I want to thank you so much for your time tonight on Friday night. Dr. Fahmi Farah, she is one of the top physicians, heart doctors in Fort Worth, according to Fort Worth Magazine, and she's a fantastic guest that joins us from time to time on News Talk 820 WBAP and now on FM 93.3. Thank you, Dr. Fahmi Farah, and have a great weekend, okay?
Thank you. Appreciate it. Bye-bye.
Okay. There she goes. That was the thing because, you hear you'll hear from New York, going, I had him on my show once. What's the doctor from Fox News on? Dr. Siegel, Dr. Mark Siegel. He's not an expert on dementia, but they have him on too. So that's why I was like, she's a board certified physician. And you heard her. She does, especially with a heart cardiologist, she'll probably deal with a lot of predominantly older people. So you're going to see conditions happen and, so there's just some basic things. I mean, when you're a heart doctor or any kind of a doctor, or even just a family physician, you notice things and you know what to look for and you develop patterns in all your patients for years and years and years. And man, she's seen, I believe, thousands and thousands of patients. So there we go. All right. So, I think we put a good bow on this to move on, but this is, I'm going to give you a few more pointers on this, a few more tips. Oh, we got to go. When we come back, I'll put a little bit of bow on this. I want to tell you this. The numbers of Americans having concerns about Biden's mental health, a brand new poll this week, and it came out 2 days before this incident last night with the press conference that was an unmitigated disaster. after the special counsel's report. To me, it says how bad he has possible dementia, and because he you have a short fuse, you get angry and frustrated, you get this and you freak out, you flip out because you're being confronted now. Not just from people that might love you and say, Dad, are you okay? Dad, you got to get checked out for the past probably 6 months to a year, 2 or 3 in his family. He probably said stuff, but not wanted to confirm because he probably freaks out on them. But when you are confronted so starkly, you know what it is? How about when your wife and you are having an issue and then you have somebody who's independent say, no, she's right, dude. So this is the reality check, I think, for Joe, where some dude that he doesn't know personally said, dude, everybody's been telling you about this. They're right. You're off the rocker now, bud. And that meant I think he flipped and went nuts and said, I'm going to fix this. I'm going to teach them and show them how great. And then he goes out there in his stupidity and his anger, and he made himself look even worse by saying, I don't know who the president of Mexico is. I thought Egypt is. I think it was from Mexico. And all. It's just insane what this man has done to himself and his career and his legacy and his presidency. It's in complete peril. All right. I'll tell you what. We're going to move on. We're going to get into coming up next on the Chris Crock Show. We're going to get into illegal migrants. It's worse. There's violence. There's violence. There's violence. There's violence. There's a shooting. An illegal migrant shot at New York City police officers today, a separate one. There is so much. And wait till you hear what these illegals who are on the run, and they're stealing all the phones from these people. And guess what they're doing? Guess where all the money they're stealing from people? Thousands and tens of thousands of dollars, it appears, after they steal their phones. Wait till you hear what these Venezuelans that Joe Biden brought in, not the one that shot at our cops today, but other ones this past week and before. This is insane what this man has done to our country, and you are just getting started. It is insane. That's next on the Chris Crock Show. News Talk 820 WBAP and now on FM at 93.3. News Talk 820 WBAP and now on FM at 93.3. Make it a preset. 800-288-WBAP is our number. 800-288-9227. This is incredible. We had another one of Joe Biden's illegals, totally different from the ones that beat the hell out of our New York City cops. I have a huge update on that. We have another illegal who is only 15, who was trying to steal from a department store, like many of them have been doing. And they confronted him. The security guard confronted him. Then he shot a tourist. He shot a tourist who was out there. This is at Times Square at a store there. And then the cops showed up, and he was firing at the cops. He fired two shots at the cops. Not just once. He fired 2 different times at the cops. They did take him into custody this afternoon at 3:30 p.m. But illegals are on the streets with a .40 caliber handgun. And so not only are they Joe's illegals, not only they're here, but they love committing crimes. I said this to you the other day, and I'm going to say it again. These Venezuelan gangs and these Venezuelan thugs had nothing to steal. Front page Wall Street Journal article about 3-4 years ago I read to you. It was stunning. The thug was leaning up against his car with his hands in his pockets. He says, I got nothing to steal anymore. He's like, I got 1 bullet left in the chamber of my revolver, and everybody I hold up has nothing to give to me anymore. They're literally killing the state bird, or the country's state bird or whatever, the flamingo, cutting its breasts off, found dead in the middle of the streets. That was 2, 3, 4 years ago. And so this is what has happened. All of these bandit, violent, illegal, criminal, thug, murderers, rapists, and killers have been let loose by Joe Biden. And so another one today, shooting a tourist at Times Square and then shooting at the cops. He had been staying at one of Joe Biden's hotels that he took over, the Stratford Hotel in New York City. He's a suspect in an armed robbery separate from this, January 27th. Another instance he's a suspect at where shots were fired in Midtown. They're killing everybody. They're shooting at them. They're robbing. Look at these great illegals, Joe Biden. And we're just getting started. This ain't nothing. And by the way, this is a 15-year-old illegal. He had no problems firing into the crowd at a crowded store and not shooting at cops once, but shooting at them twice. So not 2 shots, but twice, 2 separate bursts at the cops. Let me remind you, that's a 15-year-old legal today. There was a 15-year-old legal who was arrested about 2 months ago. We talked about. He was sitting there with a homeless guy with his hands over the firewood, staying warm in the middle of the night. He got in an argument with a homeless guy who's legal. He murdered him with stabbed him to death. A 15-year-old illegal arrested for murder. And then now the illegals who beat the hell. I got the body cam footage. And I know you can't see it on radio, not yet, but I have the body cam footage that I can play for you. You can hear the audio because it is disgusting and it makes me so angry. They are like little children. They're grown men thugs, but they're like little children chanting God knows what gang stuff or sayings together in unison. It's really... It's really scary is what it is, and it's like, whoa, like they don't plan this out. They just start chanting something and singing it together, dancing around as the cops confront them. And then one of them gets held because they recognize him for a previous crime, and they just start beating the hell out of all the cops. You're going to hear that video that was released just like today or yesterday. Brand new body cam footage, raw, like right there where the illegals were, beating the hell out of them, chanting. It's just disgusting. This is what Joe Biden's brought into our country. And speaking of those illegals, listen to this. It's way worse than you understand what we've been told. By the way, I want to give out our number right now. I want you to chime in right now at 800-288-WBAP, 800-288-9227. Do you think... And I got to tell you one more thing. This is brand new today from the Daily Caller. I'll give you more details in the next segment. But Pakistani illegal immigrant on terror watch list was released. This is brand new today from the Daily Caller. Immigration authorities released for 1 day a Pakistani illegal who was a terrorist on a terror watch list. They set him free. And then they go, oh, crap, like 24 hours later. So the quote here is, imagine how many cases like this one get through without us knowing, said a DHS official, because they can't stop them. They're overloaded. Joe has flooded them. Okay, now, we've had 1 million in 4 months, just to give you an idea. 1 million in the past 4 months. We've set all these records, all sorts of records. Now, let me share with you an unbelievable thing. What are we at on time, buddy? My earpiece was off. 30 seconds. Okay. I'll tell you what, when I come back, I'm going to share with you. But these illegals who beat the hell out of the cop, you're going to hear the body cam. But they were not just beating cops. There's a much wider conspiracy of these illegals stealing cell phones and making insane purchases. But where they're buying them and where the money's going out of your phone through your bank on your iPhone to where it's going, you're going to be shocked. It's angry and makes you angry and disgusted. That's coming up next on the Chris Crock Show on News Talk 820 WBAP. I want to hear from you. The questions are, do you think another violent, illegal New York City shooting where a woman got shot in Times Square and the cops, do you think that and he was on the loose, do you think this shows everyone just how dangerous Joe Biden's invasion is and will be? And do you think illegals who are on the terror watch list are getting released into our country a lot more than we are hearing about, as the DHS secretary or DHS agent said? And do you think it's too late for Democrats and Biden to get aggressive with the illegal invasion? They're saying they're going to get aggressive today. All that's next on the Chris Crock Show. Chime in right now, 800-288-WBAP on News Talk 820 WBAP and now on FM at 93.3.